Sharing and reusing injecting equipment risks passing blood-borne viruses between people who inject drugs. Factors associated with the risk of passing infections when equipment is shared include the amount of virus and the quantity of blood in the syringe. This is determined by the size of the dead space between the bottom of the needle and the top of the plunger once it has been fully pressed in. Different types of equipment have varying amounts of dead space. There are two main types of injecting equipment, those where the needle is fixed and those where the needle can be detached. Standard injecting equipment with detachable needles contain around 10 times more dead space and transfer more blood if reused than equipment with fixed needles. Viruses such as hepatitis C and HIV survive for longer in high dead space compared to low dead space equipment, and their use is associated with a greater number of people having these viruses when comparing countries with different patterns of use. Increasing the number of low dead space syringes in circulation could reduce the number of people with hepatitis C and HIV. The World Health Organization and National Institute for Clinical Excellence recommend needle and syringe programs offer low dead space syringes. Detachable low dead space syringes are available but are not yet widely distributed. The objectives of this study were to explore the views of people who inject drugs and professionals and volunteers who work with them on the acceptability of detachable low dead space syringes and to determine whether an intervention is required to promote their use. We conducted face-to-face interviews with 13 professionals and volunteers and 23 people who inject drugs in Bath and Bristol, in collaboration with Bristol Drugs Project and Developing Health and Independence in Bath. Interviews explored experiences of different types of injecting equipment, how the available options were chosen between, facilitators and barriers of changing this equipment, attitudes towards detachable low dead space syringes and syringe cleaning practices. Decisions about equipment type, where on the body the person injects, and syringe cleaning were informed by early experiences and being shown how to inject by other people who inject drugs, awareness and availability of alternatives, and the ability to inject successfully. The relationship between cleaning and reusing syringes was complex. Not rinsing risked reuse of unclean syringes in the event of shortages, while rinsing could encourage reuse. The most important thing within this theme is the ability to inject without problems such as abscesses, vein damage, and pain. Most people who inject drugs found it difficult to change injecting equipment, and in the absence of any problems, they saw no need to change. However, if people who inject drugs experienced problems with their equipment, they sought changes to address them, and if there was a perceived benefit to the person, they may be willing to consider change. An important barrier to change was the prioritization of getting a hit quickly over the prevention of future problems. Before people became used to detachable low dead space syringes, initial annoyance about the removal of familiar equipment was anticipated. Most people who inject drugs were expected to be willing to try detachable low dead space syringes and to continue using them if they worked as well as the original equipment, and there may not even be a response to the change. The majority of people we interviewed valued the feature less wasted drug and felt that this would be an important motivating factor for encouraging the use of detachable low dead space syringes. Although getting a hit was expected to be prioritised over harm reduction practices, the majority of people who inject drugs valued the reduced risk of passing infections with this new equipment. There was a preference for a gradual introduction of detachable low dead space syringes, in which people who inject drugs are informed about and given an opportunity to try the new equipment alongside their usual equipment. When implementing detachable low dead space syringes, it may be useful to provide training for people working in needle and syringe programs about the beneficial features of this equipment, who to offer the equipment to, and how to encourage a change in equipment. Information could also be offered to people who inject drugs to raise awareness of the benefits of detachable low dead space syringes. Encouraging appropriate syringe rinsing or cleaning methods for those known to reuse or share equipment is also needed. A gradual introduction was preferred over replacing equipment without warning. Once service users have been informed about the equipment and given the opportunity to try them, a process of phasing out the old equipment could begin. Adverse events or unintended consequences and the impact on blood-borne viruses should be monitored over the long term to understand the acceptability in practice. Our findings suggest that detachable low dead space syringes should be introduced by demonstrating that they're likely to be acceptable. We've used the findings to develop recommendations for the implementation of detachable low dead space syringes.